let's not beat around the bush and let's get straight to the point. We got a new historic rebalance announcement. This is going to be effective tomorrow, and this is only for historic, right? It's not going to affect timeless. So if you're not fond of this change, you can straight up take the same Boros energy deck and just play in timeless, and you'll do great. So first off, we got Galvanic Discharge. So the nerf to this card is changed from you gaining 3 energy to 2 energy. So this one is quite huge, right? Because in this format, a really strong aggro wizard deck exists. So you cannot kill Symmetry Sage or Dreadhorde Arcanist, things like that. So that is quite huge. The fact that you can't just go Galvanic Discharge on those cards means that now you have to set up an energy generating creature, right? Such as Guide of Souls. And then on turn 2, you can follow it up with another 1 mana card into a Galvanic Discharge to deal 3 damage. Now the problem with that is if opponent went first and had a Symmetry Sage on turn 1, and you go turn 1 Guide Up Souls because you can't use Galvanic Discharge, now they can just kill the Guide Up Souls, or on turn 2 if you go Guide Up Souls into a creature, hoping that that creature hits the board, and then you Galvanic Discharge on that turn. You can't do that anymore. You can also respond to creature coming down on stack, and you can just kill the Guide Up Souls, right? So it's quite problematic. This is a pretty huge nerf, but it's not really going to kill the deck, in my opinion, because the energy deck has other removal spells such as Static Prison, but it's nonetheless a very huge nerf. But this is also going to affect non-energy decks more. So for example, any control decks that are playing Galvanic Discharge, this card is so bad now. So if your deck does not generate any energy, this single copy of Galvanic Discharge is not going to be able to kill, again, Symmetry Sage, Dreadhorde Arcanist, but it's also not going to kill Ajani that's transformed as a Planeswalker. I think that's pretty huge because for some reason Ajani is not part of this balance change. I kind of half expected the Ajani's loyalty abilities to be at least -1. Because of that, like, look, there's nothing about it. It is a bit weird, isn't it? So the fact that the Galvanic Discharge doesn't do that anymore, doesn't deal 3 damage on its own, it kind of got the Unholy Heat treatment, and it's probably not going to be playable if your deck does not generate energy. So moving on to Guide Up Souls. So Guide Up Souls got a similar treatment to the Galvanic Discharge. Instead of generating less energy, the requirement for the triggered ability when you attack, it now requires 4 energy instead of 3. So it became less aggressive, right? But at the same time, because of the Galvanic Discharge now requiring more energy to deal 3 damage, that is also affecting Guide Up Souls as well, because you're getting now taxed more from Galvanic Discharge. But then Guide Up Souls itself also requires more energy. So this is definitely a huge nerf to the Guide Up Souls, in my opinion. It may not seem like much, but this one's huge. But unlike Galvanic Discharge, it's still going to be playable because this is a very efficient way to generating energy in this deck. So Guide Up Souls still going to be played in energy deck, but just know that you're not going to be dealing as much damage as before, and the Guide Up Souls itself is not as threatening. And the last card that got nerfed was Ocelot Pride. I believe this card is completely unplayable, right? So what happened to this card is now that this card is a 2 mana card instead of 1 mana card. Nothing has changed except for the mana cost. This card is just gone. You can't play this. The Boros Energy's 2-drop slot, packed to the brim. You have Goblin Bombardment, Ajani, Raptor, Amulet. Like, how can you play Ocelot Pride? I think it's just better to play something like an Esper Sentinel at this point. So yeah, Galvanic Discharge, still gonna be played in energy deck. Guide Up Souls, still gonna be played in energy deck. Ocelot Pride is now basically banned from historic. So yeah, that about sums it up. I am very surprised that Flage or Ajani didn't get nerfed, because I believe Flage is very similar in power level to Uro. And considering that Uro is banned, I'm surprised Flage is still around. And as for Ajani, I fully expected at least Ajani to have a -1 instead of having a 0 loyalty ability to create a dude and being able to ping something down. But one thing's for sure, Boros Energy is a lot weaker now, but Galvanic Discharge being nerfed also means that every other deck that was using this card is now also worse. against something like Symmetry Sage, for example.